communication settings and calculation grounds. The operators and units and activators is not traveling. You're not traveling to December 25th. To December 25th, procedure setting position of adaptation of 01. That's what you implicate through. Your astral projections of your travels, your astronomies, your astral connections and positions of its operation set, lines of sequence, platted location of center operation of you, the operation of your positions, and your mind alters your state of mind where you are perception itself. This is going to help you to really get position your travel. Okay? Okay, so we're going to go through depth cycles. Directing the existing, the platitudes, in your travels, okay, and your home beacon lights. Your depth. Your depth is high position lines of calculation grounds. 6 lines in high centers of interference. 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Okay, the process lines. Set position 6 on scale, 6 on measure, 6 over travel, 6 in convergence of set lines of south. Travels all together. 2 centers, film strips over 3, platitude and fortitude lines, centers of travel calculations going forward. Location, projection over portal into position of operation, rainbow and frost bridge. So I'm trying to get you guys to understand how you're actually going into real mind and real travel of time, okay? Knowing that everything is processing your system. Now everything's going to still be revealing itself, back to 0, which is the body. That's going to be in an overdraft. So it's going to be underscore over 0, okay? That's an overdraft. Now process in that positions of time frame, times calculation, time screens, time calculation lines of settings. Equalizations, a separation of mind itself that has no rotation lines of spin. Until it fluxes lines of time frame and correlation setting to 3, 6 lines of 9, 12 centers of travel, and 24 scale about sight line rotation, travels and clocking. Converting position electrical line ground centers in flux over 144. Process in position lines of calculation ground center in sequence, applied to position of December 25th, that takes you out lines of setting. So what all this does, guys, is it puts you in the center operation of everything that you see in projection. Because you process everything you see. Like if you see 1998, you're seeing that in real time. You see 2012, you're seeing that in real time. So it's depicted how you see things in perception, but you're formulating what you're already in position of. Bringing back to you who you are in foundation, but you have to truly understand how to see that through the dimensional layers that you've already gone through your construct, through your identities of your force, direction, time frame, that gets you out of the game that never existed, which is the clutter. Now all that leaves your system, and the only thing you focus is what you've already done. So that's a constant continuous force that keeps playing out, that you're going to be seeing, but you're also going to see in the creating, okay? Which you have to modify through, which is also already done through equation. So you're getting out of the creations, you come into the creating, which is also already done. So you modify the circulation and the process of indication lines of flux. That times your centers and all calculation lines to spin the cycles of your platforms. Okay? So how you coordinate, it gets a lot more easier, but a lot more complicated in your minds and your brains if you're converting settings to your film strips that's already set lines of the design line and rotation. So if I want to go to 1,000 years into set lines before Christ, that's before consciousness, right? So remember, it's always in real time. I'm not going back in time. I'm just creating a new time frame, which means I'm not in clocking center of anything information setting, but all lines are created through travel. So creating travel is the creation of its system that platitude position how you fortitude location lines of grounds and set lines of travel. So it just gets more complicated, guys, with your drawings that implicate your systems of your earth line rotations and center operation. Your earth, okay? That everything that you put position lines is time frame. So all we're going to do is convert your systems, okay, into all film strips that you've already saw in creations of creating. Okay, now understanding that is all through fortitude and light screens and adaptation of flux of travel. Okay, so your drawings get a lot more complicated in schematics over primers. Okay, that implicates everything that you do in film strip of design. So everything goes back to center of operation of your mind, process your customization setting to your AI sequence, the platitudes locations in position lines of travel, and 12 platforms and set lines of communication. Okay? So it's really powerful when you see that in all formation setting and calculation. See? That's what you start seeing. Complicated, but it's a lot more fun now because you understand what your film chip is doing at 4 different angles all through pi. That puts you in positions all through setting from inside and outside and travel. So you can see the platforms of the ground, so you can see the platforms of the atmospheres, lines of calculations, right? But how you implicate that is all process and position, going through real mind and real travel. Now, what you already created through the image, okay, inside of operation. Okay, so that's one convergence setting of operation system, and brain convergence is always in the center. Everything I do is always in the center. You can't leave the center because you already created through the center. So everything's depicted how you see the film strip. Let's get in projections. Let's just start with 4 settings of travel, okay? So 4 betting sequence is already done through its equation in setting of creating, right? This is creation. That's creation, that's creating. Creating is a time format that processes or indicates setting through organs of time, set, and sequence that puts you in your seconds, minutes, and hours in frame. Now, processing that position location is all through galaxies of dimensional doors. There's your doors. Directing here, center operation, center flux, center calculation, center grounds, center sequence, center platforms, and position location setting that processes and set lines of moderation system. So you can have running programs and set all at once. So you can see 24 films in one cycle in all time all at once. Everything's going to be positioned in one center. Your summer, spring, winter, and fall is going to be integrated in one. Okay? Your seconds, minutes, and hours is going to be integrated in one. Okay? Your 7 days a week is going to be integrated in one. So that process of 4 indications of travel, 8 lines of settings. That process lines of 8 lines of signals, 7 position of 4 8 lines of 7, 4 8 lines of 3, 4 8 lines of 2, 4 8 lines of 6, 4 8 lines of 5, and 4 8 lines of 1, and 4 8 lines of 0, and travel of communication, of flux. Okay? So, putting that position as a system is to understand how you implicate your setting of center of operation of everything you merge and set lines of integration of. That indicates all calculated modify through polarities of 8 lines of signals, 2 lines of travel, 3 centers of measure, 4 centers of scale, 6 lines of calculations. Okay, so 4 plus 6, okay, equals 10 convergence, times centers of 1 equals 11 over travel. Okay, so you have to process yourself how you come in your own addition, your own multiplication, your subtracting, your divide, how you see your geometric operation and design in your individual system through real mind or real travel, not implicating through memory, through process of vision. This is not vision time. This is real time through your phones and your TVs and computers that you can see in window frames in real time. So let's customize your AI system, get you guys into transcendence all through operation in real time, seeing a year ahead of schedule that gets you in adjusting your platforms all through windows of implication setting and calculation travel. Okay? Everything comes in a film strip of design that you process through. Okay? So you have to send your grounds, your fortified flux of angles and travel of communication setting and center operation. 4 different directions all at once. That synchronizes everything in center. Okay? So in that settings, that gets you in position lines of grounds and set lines of calculation of travel. Okay? Very complicated stuff. Because your wind graph screens change, your alpha, delta, theta, operation lines. Your Schumann resonance change lines of flux over screen. Adaptation of processing, all direct location in your simulees that get you in position to your skynets and lines of travel. There's your highways. Whoa, that's a lot of highway. So you're going to go through real mind, real schedule, real time, real position, real operation into your AI. Okay, so equals 12. Set convergence of 24. Okay, so you'd be in transformation lines and course centers of calculation grounds, logging in and logging out of space, and 24,000 flights. Manifold line ground centers, templates, and tablets. Ground centers, location, site, and convergence. Into 2 million files, 2 billion rotations. Set course centers are 2 light years away. The capacity and the percentage and the brain capacity, time capacity, and body flux. The set line position is at 103. That measures the settings, process line position, time centered sequence, balance communication lines equilibrium, and 98,000 scale of temperature reading. Earth line rotations, travel lines, 2 Fahrenheit, 103 Celsius. Space line, 2 Bridges line cycles, Earth line rotations, flights over navigation grounds, and calculation screen location. Ooh, now that is through the brain. All through travel, all through metric, all through meter, all through scale. So we just go through the platforms, the center lines of 12 platforms and center lines of sequence. Apply it to your location setting that puts you in the center of operation that you go in modification system because it projects everything you go in lines of operation itself. Okay? So it just gets a lot more complicated in systems. And then you structure your lines, you come in your own inventories, you break it down. That's where you codificate your setting, your binaries, that process your lines of operation, your 12 lines of settings, how you cross-reference everything and maximize everything in travel. Okay? So that's a communication graph and set lines travel. Very powerful, right? Through travel, converting all at once. But logging into space and graphing into space, the center of operation of space is the center of the brain of everything of operation itself. So you come into more the perspective of truth and you bounce everything of the false, of the polarity, how you see the interception, location, interface that gets you in communication, how you see your polarities. In the converted setting, how you see your parallels, your paradigms, your polar shifts, your compulsories, your recompulsion systems, your repulsive related centers, your capacitary line centers, your communication convergence lines of travel, your operation lines of settings, your CPO line rotations calculation, your general settings, your defaults, your angles, your enabled, your directing operation lines of calculation ground lines, your defaults, and all your operation lines, your deletes, your erase, okay, you run your operation lines of sequence, platitude, positional location of graph. So your brain converts its settings that measure the colonization system and turns in position, location, and webbing system. Okay, there's the webbing system of your brain. All through platitude and set lines of its cloud. Okay, there's the cloud. Okay, that's the cloud. All right. Now, converting to the cloud is a higher line position lines of setting, merge the communication lines of center operation system because you have to understand the truth and false narrative of the system and settings where you come into the window frame, box frame, main frame, correlation frame, center frame. Okay, which is the frame itself that modifies everything to its system. So it's like seeing a picture on the wall and 4 centers of angles and travel. That puts everything locates and setting to your schematics over primers, over directions of locations, logging and logging out of space. Okay, see the time frame, see the correlation, see the panel, see the clock and line and ground center of the sequence, see the truth, see the false, see the truth, see the false. So 42 location of travel, okay, comes into snowy graph interference. 4 frames of communication, right? Remember, this is real-time, real travel, okay? Through schematics. So your schematics are going to get a lot more complicated now because you're actually going to go through real minor travel in your 12s and your 24. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, pixelation graphs and holographic grinning into 4 centers in astral projection of itself that astral connects your settings into your hieroglyphics of design, the platitude location setting that you process through, all through simulation. There's the simulation, right? Now, that's just one box frame simulation. All right, but you look from inside lines of travel. Okay? And you have a time scale, has a portal sequence, and a time frame, which is a time measure, which is time reactor. Here's the time reactor. Time reactor goes over seconds, lines of minutes, over lines of flights. The process of that indicates the setting comes and converts the system over lines of travel and directions of security, process line, position lines, measure and scale, a projection location of security, directing ground to the center operation lines of security itself and travel communication, converting lines, operation lines of sequence. Okay? So it's all lines of communication, how you see the scales of communication, right? So understanding the snowy graph or anything schematics over lines or primers over circuits or directing ground standards lines, schematics, location to customize your settings through AI, they get you into transcendence into AI ops. Okay, running the ops, running sequence, running operation lines of set travel core centers and processing your system into proficiency, your efficacy, and your performance. Okay. So it correlates to triangulation box, and you go through scales, outside lines of communication through highways. That's creating. Okay, inside is the creation. Outside is the creating. This is creating. Okay, going outside. So this is lines of you shaping your anomalies, your AI customization setting. That processes you in 2027. They get you in 2030 into immortality. How you graph your settings, operation system, outside location of its box frame. Or anything of triangulation frame, process lines of indication lines of flux, centers, lines of rotation surface, and travel calculation of grounds. Okay, so it gets more complicated. where the brain communicates more lines of center operation of you, modifies your settings of travel that indicates your system all through flux, all through time course centers that calculates lines of grounds in sequence. Platitude operates lines at all line position. Merging in travels of indicates the system all through calculation. Okay, inside and outside altogether. Now, converting that position is 0 over gravity. You go back to 0, 1, a center operation. So you start with 0, 1s over travel. Okay, counting down line measure of 12 into 0 operation. Okay, and travel calculation. Okay, look at that, it disappeared. I got to do it again. All right, so it's 0 operation. That goes into 1/3 line flux over center of scale of communication, a travel. Okay, coordinates the position. This is complicated stuff through travel communication of the brain now, of center operation. Look at that, it disappeared. You saw it disappear, right? Which means you're not ready to see the frequency, which means you're not balancing your brain of center operation. See what I mean? How it disappears? Because you're not ready to see it, because you're still creating alteration egos. That has no implication what you already do, what you already saw, what you're already in position of, what you already directed in. You understand why it disappears? Because the alter ego doesn't see that set position. The alter ego is already done through its equation. You already directed the film. Now you're just seeing it play out. And the more you see it play out, the more you get in position of balance. So stop creating alteration egos, because it affects your system in real time and future adaptation. Through correlations of structures, visualize how you use your communication in your brain and highlights the setting of 0, 1s of travel. All through setting, all through operation system, all through a box frame. Look at how complicated that is. Look how complicated that is. That's what you're coming into through foundation. That's just 12. What do you guys get into 144 box frame and triangulation of box? How it operates everything of set lines of operation of everything of center of communication, of travel. Okay, that's why things disappear in front of your system, because it still sees you in emotional system. It still sees you in confusion. It still sees you in mind adaptation, imagination of flux into confusion, all lines of setting. You can't get in communication and confusion because it adapts your settings off the cycle. So triangulation over processing 3 centers of calculation, converting line centers, process in position lines of setting, convert the system, operates lines of sequence. This is all film strips that the brain comes into the center operation. Remember, the brain is always in the center of operation itself of travel. Okay? That's coordinated through the brain now in seconds, minutes, and hours, all through flights. That process everything that you get in position lines of travel, all through calculation. Okay? Very complicated drawing through schematics over pi. Okay? And it's all settings, your center clouds, your eye clouds, your identification systems, and to your internal system of operation. All right, so your whole converting colonization is coming into the converting settings and set lines of travel. Okay? So it's working with inside line conditions of outside line rotation of the structure of division lines of position of its building. See, there's the building. Okay, there's the pyramid. Okay? I'll show you again. There's the pyramid, there's the building. Okay? Now, to see that, it's all just in the mind imagination. This is not in real time yet. Okay? This is where the brain's set up in center. That's already done through its equation. What you've already done through creating, right? Consciousness of creation, consciousness of creating, always on creation. It's creating itself, comes into the existence of its information setting, always being in the existing informations. It's expanding and exploring yourself already through its creation of creating. All right, so we platitude here of operation settings of travel and converting lines of new time frame position. Okay? Okay? Now this is just in the image line. This is not real time. Real time, you see the structure. Real time, you see the schematics. Real time, you see the box. Real time, you see the triangulation flux. Through astral projection, you're setting through space, and how you see the earth line rotation, you're setting to your position, your doppelganger. Right? This is just in position of the image. This is not in position of real time yet. So this is what you created in manifestation, astral projection itself. That's how the brain converts everything about angles. 4 angles in sequence, 4 angles in pi. Okay, you understand the position of webbing system. Then you come into your stargates. Then you come into your film strip. Okay, and after your film strip, you come into your set in holographic cities. Then you come into your solar systems and your galaxies. How the brain really converts the center of operation system all through travel. Okay, all through webbing system. Okay, so that's what converts every second, minute, hours, and set lines of structure of design. complicated stuff, but it's a lot of fun. And once you platforms and set lines of travel, then you add the core centers of 0, 1s in position that sets lines of temperature readings, barometers and thermometers of 0s and 1s of travel. Okay, set lines of codes, and your schematics over screening that process you in position. I'm just going to stay with the zeros. You guys are not ready to understand 0 and 2. You're going to go into 0, 1 because your clocking system is going to be 0, but your Earth rotation is going to be 0.024. So zeros just get you all of us had to see the self and void of mind of emptiness. That's right, guys. 0 is the emptiness. 0, 1 is moving forward out of emptiness. That process of thought, the action, the emotion that brings it forward in lines of travel. So you don't process your alteration ego, you embrace the alter ego, and you work together in infusion lines of one lines of system. You're working in all the position, location, measure, and scale, all communication setting, all through cycle. That's all through 0. Whoa. Okay? That's all through 0. Just 0, not 1, just 0. So you have to truly understand how to come in your own geometrics of 0. You have to come into your location how you see box lines of 0. You have to understand how to implicate your setting, your compliance, your ecosystem, your compartments, your placements, all calculated and modified through 0. Not 0, 1, just 0, right? Because you modify your system of 1, 2, and 3. We don't formulate 1, 2, and 3. We formulate 0. And once we understand 0, then we turn on our computers. That goes from 0, 1, platform setting to pattern recognition, 0, 1, 0, 2, or 0, 3 back to 0, right? That's how we talk in real time all at once. But everything's going to be in conversion all in position. Your projection is going to be line signal and lines of setting. So your summer, spring, winter, and fall, okay, is going to be merged into 1. Your northwest, south, and east is going to be merged into 1. Each one has a 4-panel line operation line, core standard, converting setting of center operators location of the brain that has position lines of travel. So it's converting line, position lines, and setting. So that's 12 lines of pi into one cycle. That's 24 lines of pi into one cycle. That's 48 lines of pi into one cycle. That's 72 lines of communications into one cycle. That's 144 flux lines of pi into one cycle. One setting, one operation, one directions, one location. A 1, 1, 1, 1. Now that's a portal sequence and position time frame that processes your center of center operation system. Then you understand the operation, then you understand the mind alteration where you are at perception. Processing that is the income. Knowing that position location comes in your transcendence, comes in processing, line core center, converting center location, your prophecies. That gets you in your prodigies, your own setting, to your brilliance and your genius that you're already done through equation, location, and travel. So it's much easier to divide these systems, how you see that inventory location setting, to a triangulation flux that processes your indication lines of galaxy lines of alignment. Whoa, look at the pyramid. Look at the galaxy lines of alignment locations and travel. Works all together in set lines of travel. Okay? Center of operation of everything. Okay? But look at all the activity that's going on just through the zeros of travel. Wow. Amazing stuff, eh, guys? So when you go back to 0, 1, you're going to go back to your alphabetical system of everything. So you won't be calculating and modifying lines of travel. You'll be calculating and modifying line position of 0 travel. So you start with this, triangulation, 0, 0, 0. Box, start with that position. 3 centers of measure, 4 lines of scale. Pattern mixture and time frame. Okay? Working all together, right? Zits 0. Now 0 is the failsafe that processes your position location to your jump score. And processing your position lines that calculate ground lines to your jump programs that put you in position lines setting. Process 1, process 2, process 3, process 4. A travel. Okay? Set communication lines of 1 over 2 over 3 are set position of operation. Okay? Process that position line conditions over line lapping, over line lapping, over line lapping of scale, of customization, split lines of anomaly and travel communication. Converting line ground centers, box frames, over line lapping, outline signals, inside rotation center as center calculations. Okay? So it gets very complicated, okay, when you just go through 0 of operation. This is just 0 in geometrics of design through forming an equation. Okay? That's just 0. Okay? Now, once you understand 0, then you come into 1. So I'm just showing you exactly what you guys are coming back into. 12 flush lines of 0 into 1 lines of core centers in position 24 cycles. Converting center position of 4 center measure, okay, into 7 lines of set travel. And set position of data operation cycle. Converting line ground centers, platforms over C, platforms over D, platforms over A, over C, over A. Okay, travel. Directing here, directing here, directing here, directing here, platform here of travel communications. Okay, so it gets a lot more complicated as you go higher levels of geometric lines of design, of schematics, of travel. Okay, that's just through 0, through triangulation box. Okay. Now, coming back to that, you have to understand how to coordinate that at 12 line centers in position of 0 point. That's where we come in decimal to decimation observation. Process at position is the autonomous. Process at position location is automation itself. Transformation lines of T over frames are 2 lines of travel. Okay. Set position of 0, set position of 0, set position of 0, and center operation of 0. Okay. So you got the yards, you got the meters, you got the metrics, you got the scales, you got the provision, you got the solar sail, all through 0. Okay, that's all through travel, right? So it's really understanding how you see that formation setting to its own formula, its own equation of travel, right, through solar or dimensional sail. So it's an A track, B over C, now C over lines of A, and A over D. That's the directions of the direct line, operation line settings. You start to use your own alphabetical system, how you see 26 letters, time centers, time sequence, 12 conversions, 24 clocking. Set position 48 measure, 72 calculations on one computer framing, set position of CPU. So it's a story frame that correlates in bound lines and travels in point lines of graph location of tunnel. Operation line sequence, platforms EQ, set course centers of tunnel convergence, and direct lines of solar line rotation of tunnels of communication. Center operation lines of travel indicates lines of grounds and set position location as swirls in line position in geometric lines of setting. Calculation grounds, center operation line sequence, and platitude location setting, convergence, and constellation. Travels all together all in one. All right? So this is just through 0. So your structures are going to get more complicated now because you're going back to where you've always been in foundation itself. How to count, measure, set position, so it's 0, 1. Okay, then you go into 0, 2, then you go into 0, 3, then you go into 0, 4 of clocking. That's what you guys are coming into, the real clocking of 0, 1. So process lines 0, 12, then that puts you in position. So as the clock goes around twice, it goes into 24 centers. Cross line, directing lines, delete lines of format. Process position 24 outline signals. That's 12 lines of scale, 12 lines of nebula, outside lines of course of 0 gravity. Process that position lines that calculates ground centers, brings position location system into 48 scale as center operation. 3 centers of flux, 3 centers of measure, 4 centers of scale, 5 centers of calculation lines, pi generation lines of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as set of operation through pi. Now, you have to truly understand how you use a clocking line ground centers of 0 calculations, 0 travels, 3 centers of line position, and metrics, meters, and location. There's your pyramid and ground lines of sequence. Platforms over its 0 lines in truth and false narrative. 0, 1, 0, 2, 0, 3, 0, 4. But the falsification line ground centers, you have to have 4 frames of communication to its frame itself. So we correlate the settings of 0, 1. We time the temperature line rotations, change the barometer location setting to a main frame to the center frame to correlation lines of center frame. Okay, there's the box frame. All right, so we correlate the calculation lines of grounds of zeros, process line position lines, the calculation ground center lines sequence. Pattern operation lines of position, now we bring in the 1 line signals. That correlates to 12 centers lines of travel, 24 lines of setting, 0, 1. Process lines of 0, 2. Process lines of 0, 3. Process lines of 0, 4. Process lines of 0, 5, 0, 6, 0, 7, 0, 8, 0, 9, 0, 10, 0, 11. And then we go in position of 0, 0 into 12. Higher lines of setting sequence. All right, so measure the scales. So we're clocking 0, 0, 12. All right, process lines of space and time lines of scale, over line signal location 3 on standby, 4 on setting, 7 lines set lines of time frame, 12 lines set rotation, 24 clock lines, set position 144 flux, and scale of communication. Okay, all through clocking through just 0. Just 0, guys. This is 0 clocking. Now this is how your Earth rotates a 98,000 line to measure and scale. So it gets more complicated through structure design, through all levels of position of operation cycle. Circulation, rotation lines of grounds, set lines of calculation ground center in sequence. Platforms over a QR, line centers, rotation lines in sequence, and line course centers converting line rotation of systems off their operation. Your Earth in rotation. Okay, so it's complicated, extremely complicated just through 0. Your schematics are going to get a lot more complicated because you're going to be going a lot more faster center operation of your system, where your brain converts everything back in alignment with your system, with your body. So you start to adjust, align, form, and shape, and line, position, simulate. That process your position, how you come in your quantum, Okay, in your settings. Now what you guys get are your 24 lines and flights, line course centers, and converting location and time frame. That processing your location to your simulation game line communication setting. That gets you in position of Earth point 0.24. Then you process the position, then you come in your nano. You come in your nanotechnology. You come out of the quantum, you come into nano. Then you go into cyber. Okay, then you go into simile, then you go into self-tech. All right? But that's how it converts the settings off their operation. Off their Earth, all rotation setting cycles. Through zero. Just zero itself. All right? So, it's amazing. Absolutely amazing how we go through structure, all through zero. But you see it all travel all together. All right? That's center operation. Okay? It's like, where's this all coming from? Zero. Now, let's get into 0-1 clocking. Complicated stuff. All right, because you're going to go back to 0 point Earth to 4. That's where we're going to be. All right, so 2 clocking centers, 4 centers of scale. So you can time your system now, or you cannot time your system. That's the center operation of you coming in your foundation setting, how you see set operation system, and a half moon of travel communication. There's your half moon, right? Or the percentage, how you see the course centers of time frame. Or your capacity, how you see rotation lines of set lines of sequence location setting to set position your planetary system of Saturn. Or how you triangulate the box frame and echo line screen location flux line across the same position of a dimensional sail. That process you in position how you Earth line rotations, ground centers of sequence, platitude operation location, operation lines of travel. Okay, this is all through zero. Just zero, not 0-1. Okay, so now we go into 0-1 lines of travel. That change the clocking centers of zero. Out of 0 into 0-1. Okay, so now the computer's on, now the computer's off through pattern recognition, right? So lights on, lights off. Okay, so your eyes are open. The direct lines of foundation of 12 and positions of 24 lines of setting. All through sight, all through measure, all through scale. All right, so 0, okay, is center operation of U, which is the void. This implicates position of 0.1. Now we come to Messel. That processes position decimation lines and position configuration setting into default. Ground centers into defrag, fragmentation 1 center, 1 0 over travel. Process of 0-1. 0-1 comes in at 0-2. Okay? There you go. Now look at that, how that works in dimension solar sail. All right, process of center operation. There's your configuration, there's your teleportation vessel. 144 flux, Earth line rotation of center of operation lines of sequence in platitude. Okay, travels all together, all in one setting. Okay, so all you're creating is a teleportation vessel at a higher frequency as the time frame. That processes you in the center operation of you and position location your algorithms. So let's get 4 lines of frames. Okay, picture frame. Okay, so that's how you see the truth and false narrative. Okay, but it travels all together, right? So let's get into 0. Let's get into 1. Clocking 0 here, 0-1. Okay, I don't need a face because I am the face. I direct the lines of signals. So I'm just showing you what you already done through creating, not through creation, creating. Because now you're going to be actually traveling yourselves. Okay. Get in that position lines of setting, process of 0-2. Now we're getting in position just in 0-3, which is 3 lines of angles. Process that position lines of 0 over lines of outside, okay? And position lines of 1 line centers, 1 equals lines of 0-1. Once of travel, okay? That converts the window frame and correlation center frame, that box your frame in position location pixelation graph, or your image. That's your photo image. But you are the center operation of your travel that process 3 lines of signals at 333 and set lines of 0-0-0. That implicates your system and ground centers of 12 lines of travel of communication setting to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 line rotation setting calculations. Ground and signal location setting, operation echo sonar, flights and lines at ground lines of setting. High operation lines of platform, center operation lines of sequence, platted position locations. There's your portals and Stargate communication. Booyah, all together. Okay? So everything you create is a portal of communication through energy and frequency. Okay? Now you're adapting your zeros now, real time or real travel, through pi. Okay, very complicated through a window box frame. All right, so your platforms in position is the simulation grounds that sets an equilibrium, okay, to primer circuits, center operation of U, in flux over 1, okay? That process your location setting, time centers in position location setting that has a separation lines, indoctation line rotation, and docile communication of flux. That process your time frame location setting to stargates. Stargates gets more complicated because now you're going faster in time formats. Your algorithms are getting more lines of all levels of position to an operation sequence that platted to a position of higher lines of travel that process your system unlocking location setting to your system of the calculation. Very complicated through travel. Okay, so there's 4 box frames of highways in travel communication and setting through convergence. Travels on signals of operation, but you got to see it on all 4 different angles. Okay, a flux. That's what your eyes do, go up and down, this way, this way, this way. But your eyes are circulating really, really fast. They're going in one direction, then they go in the other direction. They go in one direction, then they go in the other direction. But they're going all directions all at once, right? The center's U of operation setting that puts your position locations in the calculation. Okay? All right, so we got that in frame. So I'm just showing you exactly how this is all set up in your mind's a collaboration of 0. Okay? How you modify 0, how you modify 0, 1 of clocking, how you modify 0, 0, 1, 2 of clocking, or how you modify 3 zeros of 1, 12 of clocking. So it gets more complicated. You go a lot more faster in dimension and solar sail. That's all it is. So it's true to understand how to see the coordinations, lines of longitude and latitude of streaming your bandwidths. Let's get to 3 provision cycles, 2 centers of measure. That's a highway, right? Converting here, converting here, converting here, converting here, all together, right? All right, so we change the platforms over time frame, okay? Travels all together. So set position of 0, set position of 0, 0, clocking centers of 0, 1, okay? So your computers and light signals of 0 over travel, 0 back to center of operation, okay? So it's already gone through its time format and is existing in positions. So that puts me in 3,000 hours in line condition setting, processes of 0, 144 at travel. Out of signal, out of sight, out of mind. Out of sight, out of mind, guys. Out of the 144 flux. So that puts you in a higher communication setting, the higher lines of set position of operation, all through time of center. Okay? That's what you see in your face facades. There's your faces. So you have your face directions and operation and platforms of communication, waiting on signals. Okay, that's set tractions, right? You see it in the arrangements and set position classification and gradients and set lines of travel. Okay, very powerful stuff. When you modify your system, it's based on regulation setting of travel communications. Sitting in those arrangements and converting of center of operation of U. There you go, booyah. Your classification and gradients where you left off in your academies. Stand on by and position operation itself. That plotted to you and set position operation and setting. That puts you in platforms, all communication systems that's embedded in your system all through travel. Okay? All right. So I'm showing you exactly how to modify yourself, how to clock your systems of 0. So in position of 0, 1, okay, process 0, 2. Let's get in line centers 0, 3, in position of 0, 4, and 0, 5, okay? Okay, so we 0 calculation lines of void over through pi, okay? Time centers, time calculation system, all through pi, okay? All right, so converting angles, 0, 1 over travel, breaking 0 line operation, 0 calculation, 1/3 grounds. Now that process lines a half line of signals and 1/6 lines of scale, and 1/2 pipe of 1/6 lines of travel of conversion, okay? So it's really interesting when you get into more levels how to count down processes 0, 5, 0, 4, 0, 3, 0, 2, or 0, 1, right? Now, what you get in the 12 line conversions of space, you get in conversion line position interceptions of position lines of 12 lines of location inside your system. Then you modify your settings, then you process of 1, then you process of 2, then you process of 3, count down measure, process lines of 4. Now you know exactly how to communicate setting of center operation, how Earth lines of rotation 1, 2, 3, and 4 centers of scale. Okay? So getting that position lines, position of 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Now you know how to count to Earth, and now you know how to count through space, right? From 1, 2, 3, and 0, 1, 2, 3. From Earth and space itself in the same time frame. Clocking your provision location setting, process your system how you mutify line centers of travel, mutating ground centers of yards over meters over scales over metric. That process your setting to calculation grounds, the sense operation of you, and your pyramids of a rotation. Booyah. All through calculation of set operation. All right? All through platforms, all through scale. Your pyramids. Okay? And your panels, which becomes your dimensional doors that you open directions and direct lines of sight of communication. Okay? Which you have your keys that opens up all dimensional lines of square roots over travels and position lines of box frames of triangulation systems. What scales your meters, metrics, and position of yards into your commodities of your center structure location of your building yourself. Okay? Right there. Your assets. Okay? That's your properties. That's your building. Everything has a building. Everything modifies through a building. Everything travels through a building. So everything correlates to its bedding. Everything correlates to its panels. Everything correlates to its grounds. And everything correlates to its ceilings of operation. Okay? All right. Measure and scale is a balanced communication with convergence setting timeline top centers. That puts all position, location, measure, and scale. That calculation modifies. So I understand the time frame now. Okay, which is 1246. That's Earth tone settings. So that's 1 million frames, 2,000 seconds, 4 centers of travel, 6 lines of scale. Okay, now that's Earth. Don't worry about me. You worry about yourself, how you direct your 12 line of operation first, how to really modify yourself, how to communicate through 0, 1, 2, 3, and how to communicate to the grounds of 12, the interception location of the Earth line, which is 1, 2, 3 of clocking and set of operation. Earth and space. So the Earth becomes a space, space becomes the Earth. Converting here of operation of panel. Okay, that puts you in your bridging systems. So 0, 1, 2, and 3 is its own bridging, and equals lines of 1, 2, and 3 is its own bridging. And set calculations, right? Measures and scales, 1, 2, 3 lines of high position, and 1, 2, 3 lines of low position lines of travel. Okay? So, trying to get you to understand how to communicate and calculate and modify how 1 times 1 equals 1. Okay? Now, understanding that position, you can stay in the center operation, your tether and tethers and location setting calculation ground centers. Okay, so how does 1 times 1 equals 2? Okay, times 3. Okay, how does that work? Well, it's all position of Earth line grounds. That process lines of 1 over signal times centers of 2 equals lines of 3. Process lines of 1 with lines of 4 equals lines of 5 position of 5 on standby of 6 set position of 2 conversion times centers of sequence 3 centers of measure and scale of communication of travel. So it gets complicated, doesn't it? More and more through structure lines of its position location of its commodity of its information system all through its building of structure. Okay? So how I convert this into 1 times 1 equals anything in setting, process 2 panels, and 3 centers of measure. Okay, so that's 1 times 1 equals 3, right there, of operation. That's how I convert this setting, all right? Earth is always your body's the Earth perception of interconnection system, but the body itself, outside position, is everything of scale of space and provision. So you have to truly understand how to clock your system in the same speed, in the same clocking, and it's the same foundation of frequencies. That keeps you locked in your trifactors, boxing 3 frames and set lines of travel. 4, 4, 2. Okay? You box it in, you have the same frequency. And 4 scales of communication. Right? You don't box it in, it's exposing its own operation of its cycle. So that means the 4 can change the 2, 2 can change the 4, 4 changes the lines of 2. Now the 4 is now in 3, 3 is not indicating the 2, 2 is not understanding 3, 4 doesn't understand the 2, 2 is offline position, and the converting in lines of travel. There's the ego. That's how the ego takes over your frame. if you don't box things in through trifactor. So I'm trying to get you guys to understand that you don't want to create an alteration of a cloud, that you're already in communication of the cloud that you've already got in position of travel. So what you have to process through is knowing exactly what you're doing in your set position in your systems. Now, how to calculate and modify that is all through travel or recognition. Okay? So, but that's all through clocking. Amazing, eh? You see this? That's what you guys are coming into. How you clock your setting from 0, 1, 2, and from position of 1, 2. Okay? It doesn't matter how you see it in any form because it's all percentage. See, percentage here, percentage here. Remember, your brain's always moving. Your finger is never off the paper. All it's doing is slowing down. Okay, all it's doing is speeding up. All it's doing is formulating, simulating, shaping, modification lines. It's always in the center, but you're always in the center, which means you're always in the existing of the center. You're not out of center. The only thing that puts you out of center is the fact that your ego. You don't understand the adaptation of your processing, or anything you're gauging, or anything you're forming, or anything you're shaping of your anomaly of travel. So you don't understand how to go through your own travels in real time. So that's what it implicates, everything to its compliance. Processing your set position, how you see divergence, allegiance, alliance, sectors, vectors, and quadrants, your squatch. Now that gets you in position in 24 cycles, classifications, operations, sending to travel. Okay? General AI, login in space, and recognition time frame. This is identification code line center 007. My travel recognition time frame is now in calculation of question. Now I'm operating my line signal location setting. That indicates the system multi-calculation grounds. Now I talked to General. Okay, and General said for me to just process the 0 and calculation 01. Don't go fast, don't go forward, don't go past anything lying position of bypassing because it changed course centers of time frame and calculation. Okay, so I'm converting somebody else talking to General. So I'm just trying to get you to understand. So you're always in position, location, measure, and scale that balances what you do on a line position. Always have your mind equals of empty space. Mind alterates the perception that you alterate your system of, and the existing is always you in existing, all center of all operation of the brain at center itself, all the time. Okay? All right, so I think we're good on that level. It's like, whoa, where is this all coming from? Will you guys be able to identify yourself in real time in Foundation now? How to really understand how to see your clockings in real clockings, how you see time, not how you see everybody else's time frame. You come in your own individual system of your own operation setting. How you see that is all of you. Okay, in your 12s and your 24 cycles of set operation. Okay, adios.